Hey, so this is Chantel, your therapist. Have you ever wondered, why do I feel anxious sometimes? Why do I feel anxiety? Okay, so I'm going to answer that question today by talking about the brain. I'm going to talk about three parts of the brain, but I'm going to simplify it. So we're not going to go into detail about the brain, but I'm going to give you some short definitions about three parts of the brain, which is going to help you understand why we feel anxiety. Okay, so first off, what I want to tell you is that our emotions come from our brain. So how we feel originates in the brain, okay? So you look at this brain, I'm gonna put it beside my head so you can see what's inside my head. So this the brain, this is my head. So this right here is the first part of the brain, and it's called the frontal cortex, okay? This is the frontal cortex, and that's our like logical reasoning process part of our brain. And that part of the brain helps us when we're in school learning new spelling words, learning how to read, learning how to process information, learning how to communicate. That's that part. We call it the smart brain. Okay. This part of the brain develops up until the age of 25. So it's continuously developing until at least 25 years old. The next part of the brain is the back of the brain, and this is called the limbic system. Okay. And that's where our emotional centers are. Okay. So back part of the brain is the limbic system. Right below that is the brain stem, and the brain stem has to do with our survival aspects of ourselves, okay? So it depends on this, survival. So that fight, flight, or freeze response comes from this brain stem, which is the lower part of the survival brain. So basically, when we are in a situation and we become stressed, what's being activated is the limbic and the brain stem. So the back part of the brain and the lower part of the brain is being activated. And specifically what's being activated is the amygdala, which is that little tissue that looks like an almond right there. The amygdala is what's being activated, okay, with the brain stem. Now, put this back together. So when that brain stem is activated, because we get stressed about some situation that's going on in our life, we automatically go to this fight, flight, or freeze response. It's like we call it the FFF alarm that goes off. But sometimes this alarm is set off, it's like a false alarm, okay? And the reason why it's false is because something that we interpret as stressful or something that we perceive as trauma or something that's triggering some type of trauma response in us, which could be somebody saying something to you that triggers you, or having to give a presentation and it makes you nervous, or somebody knocked a book down and it startled you because it was really loud. Maybe you thought it was a gunshot. Your body goes into this false FFF, fight, flight, or freeze response, and then you start having bodily sensations as a result. Now, when your body goes into that response, the frontal lobe, which is the smart brain, goes offline. This part goes offline. So now you're only functioning from the limbic and the brain stem. So the back of the brain, which is the emotional brain, and then a survival brain, which is the brain stem. So you're no longer connecting to your reasoning and your thought process. You're more like, oh, I got to survive. This was effective back in the day when we were cavemen, because if you lived outside and you don't have like a roof, so you battle the animals, you have to be real based in your instinct. You have to be instinctual and ready to do what you had to do to survive. That evolved, but when it evolved, because our world changed, stress triggers that fight, flight, or freeze response. So in the stress level depends on the person. So one person might perceive one stress level more heightened than another person perceived it. So when that happens, it typically happens if you're depressed or you have anxiety or you just have high levels of stress. That fight, flight, or freeze response from the brain stem is going to be activated, which means your frontal lobe is going offline. You're no longer logical and rational. You're basically in survival mode and your emotions are like shooting through the roof, okay? So the thing you have to do is learn how to reconnect that frontal lobe, your smart brain, with your emotional brain. And that's, that survival brain that's really part of the emotional brain. So you have to learn techniques such as deep breathing. Deep breathing is the most effective mode to kind of bring both brains, the front and the back brain, back online, because it helps us connect back with not just the body sensation, because when you're stressing and you're in that heightened stage, you feel like symptoms, like your hands might sweat, your palms and your hands might sweat, your heart start beating really, really fast, where it make you feel like you're about to have a heart attack. Your stomach might feel upset. You might have to use the bathroom, go urinate more often because it's like this things are happening in your body. It's like you're freaking out a little bit. It's preparing you to like either fight or run. That's what's happening. Your body's being prepared to do that. But in all actuality, there's no real danger other than what we're thinking is going on based on what we were triggered by. Okay. So what do you have to do? You have to find a way to calm the senses down. And the first way is doing deep breathing. Breathing in through the nose and out through the mouth slowly. And when you breathe from your diaphragm. Okay. Diaphragm breathing is when you breathe in, your stomach should poke out. Don't breathe too much through the chest because it's going to make you hyperventilate. And when you breathe out through the mouth and you breathe out slowly. So that kind of calms your nerves and kind of start bringing things back together. Sometimes if you want to try to bring that brain back on, the frontal lobe, the smart brain back online, maybe write down, what are you feeling? Okay, I'm feeling stressed because this is going on. I'm irritated because of that. Be real specific about what's happening. So you start to bring your logic back online. Another thing you can do is grounding exercises where you can go outside and walk. And you walk and you're taking deep breaths. You start looking at the scenery around you, like paying attention to your senses. So you're no longer inside of your body, you're outside of your body. You look at the trees, and you look at, okay, that's a nice tree. The color is like a nice green color. I like how the leaves are flowing. Look at the sky. The sky is very blue. I like the white clouds in the sky. What can you hear? What can you see? What can you smell? That type thing to kind of distract you from the sensations within you to reconnect you with the outer world and see that it is safe. So you start grounding yourself to the current reality, which is a type of mindfulness technique, if that makes sense. So there you have it. So I'm just explaining to you how the brain works when you go into fight, flight, or freeze response. It's basically the amygdala, which is that little small almond-shaped tissue that's like kind of in the limbic and lower part of the brain that gets activated. And it's normally a false alarm because it's our stress that we perceiving it as more dangerous than it really is. But in order to calm that, you have to do deep breathing or grounding exercises to bring you back to center, or even writing in a journal. Okay. So that's what I have for you. Let me know if this helps.